This video contains content sponsored by John Wilson Blades and MK Blades. Opinions discussed in this video do not reflect the views of John Wilson or MK.
Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees. This is Jonathan Byer, and today we're doing our first joint interview together with Linda Fradiani. Linda, welcome to the skating lesson.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you both.
Dave and I had the pleasure of meeting our guests at the 2016 United States Figure Skating Championships, and we were wowed by her warmth, her glamour, her wit, and her perspective on the sport. We are thrilled to welcome two-time world champion. I introduced you as a one-time world champion, and you said, I believe it's two. Four-time United States champion, Olympic silver medalist, and let everyone know how to pronounce your last name. It's Linda Fradiani.
Not Chicago, Linda. Yes, beautifully. You say that more beautifully than I do. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to just dive right in, Linda.
Okay.
As you know, we're big Frank Carroll fans.
So am I.
Yeah, like get in line. Okay.
Yes.
So you have the rare distinction of being Frank Carroll's favorite student of all time. He said it right here on the skating lesson. He's coached such a list of legends, right? So what exactly does one do to get Frank to like them better than, say, Michelle Kwan? How did you?
Well, as Frank said on that interview, I think he has his favorite student. I think he has his most talented. I think he has the one that, he thought was the most creative, the one who was the most disciplined. And I don't know. When I had lessons with Frank, I just idolized him. And I wanted to do everything he told me to do. I wanted to jump higher. I wanted to spin faster. And, he says that now. And looking back, I was very shy as a student, and I just nodded a lot at him, and I never spoke back or never said two words. And now that I'm coaching, I love interaction with kids, and they say the funniest things to me. And so I'm thinking, I get a little kid that is so shy and just nodding. I think, oh my God, was I this way with Frank? And how can you say I was the best? But I'm very flattered that he talks that way about me, and he's just been such a dear friend in my life, and I don't know what I would do without him. We're still very friendly today, and we both work at the Toyota Sports Center, and so I see him 5 days a week, and I have this amazing job. I know we'll probably get into all that later, but
we will. Don't worry, if you're not, Linda.
I got a million of your questions beforehand. I'm so sorry.
No. Okay, so you were once quoted as saying that figure skating has meant your entire life. So how exactly did you get started in the sport?
I went skating with a neighbor, and it was a birthday party. And I had 2 years of ballet training before that. And I guess I was just skating around faster than all the girls. And the woman came back and called my mom and said, I didn't know Linda was taking skating lessons. And my mother said she wasn't. And I guess from then she enrolled me in group lessons and saw that I was talented, interested, and found one coach. And after about 8 months, I don't know what it was that my mother saw in me, but she looked around the valley, and she says that she tried to find the best, well-qualified coach for me. And at the time, Frank was, an up-and-coming coach. And so that's how I got connected with Frank. And there was just this instant respect. And back in the days, you had to audition for Frank because he did not take the lower levels. Okay. And so I skated around. I remember skating around at Van Nuys, Iceland, and I remember both my mother and father were there. And I remember afterwards, my dad came over to the side and he says, well, is my daughter good enough for you? Like that. But, I was the first one. I was just on my first test. So.
And obviously you were. So easy peasy. Well, speaking of your parents, like, what were they like? On television broadcasts, like they talk about how he was a judge of the sport and your mom has been in the sport for years. So what were they like as like kind of skating parents?
Well, my dad was a Superior Court judge.
Oh, God.
So maybe that's where you got it wrong.
Yeah, okay. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, he's not Vanessa Riley? Okay, got it.
No, he was for 20 years and then a Superior Court judge. And what was so wonderful about that is when I skated, he worked right across the street at the courthouse. So on his lunch breaks, he would come over and watch me skate. So that was wonderful. And then he took me skating every Sunday for 2 hours. So I had time. I'm one of 5 kids. So it was very, I didn't talk around the house because I'm in the middle. There's 2 older and 2 younger. And so my mom was gone a lot with me. And my dad was very supportive and worked extra hours to pay for my skating. And my parents were very, very supportive. And I remember my mother being at every one of my competitions, everyone.
And stayed in the sport for a long time after you were competing, right?
She actually became a skating judge.
Okay.
Yes. And she absolutely loved skating. And yeah.
Great. And so did any of your other siblings skate, or that was just for Linda?
Just for me. My 2 brothers are attorneys, following Dad's footsteps.
Okay. All right. That's not a bad choice. Okay. So one of the things that always surprised us when we meet you now is that remember that as a competitor, you were very shy.
Yes.
Right? And you talk about being a shy student, and now you exude this confidence and personality. So when did that all kind of change for you?
That's just a front, Jonathan.
Oh, like a true performer. Yeah, okay.
I'm still very shy. Yeah, that is
okay.
Sure, like, around the spotlight on and get the fishnets going and the eyelashes and I'm a performer, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was pretty shy. I did not grow up in show business or, having any, athletic parents.
Okay.
I was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad, went to work from 9 to 5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And now you talk about being such a good student with Frank, and it was often mentioned that you were kind of a perfectionist. Would you say?
Yes.
Okay. So you really have the ability to learn and absorb this information on the ice. Where did this perfectionism, this kind of mentality come from? Did you always have that, or is it something your parents instilled, or?
Absolutely. Nothing my parents instilled. I think it was something that, I was very little as a kid, and skating around at my rink, there were kids around me, older girls that were doing double axels, and I'm like, I want to do that double axel. I want to be better than them. But something about being a perfectionist, and you hit it right on there, I think helped me become a champion, right down to the clothes in my closet, where everything is, and this probably comes from being in the ice show for Disney on Ice for 10 years. Everything is facing to the left, and every other button is buttoned, and it goes from white to beige to colors to blacks, because I need to be organized in my life.
You're with friends. We get this entirely. We are like-minded on this situation. Yeah.
Oh,
it's interesting because sometimes perfectionism in skating and in other areas, it's a blessing and a curse, though, right? Because we see, some might consider more current competitors, even like Gracie, as kind of a perfectionist, and it can kind of toy with you mentally instead of inspire you, to be the best you can. So do you found it more of an asset than a hindrance, your perfectionism, when you were competing?
Well, for me, it was about being the best that I could be. It was not competing against anybody else. And, you know, honestly, I teach a little group lesson with little girls that are 10, 11 years old. And it's at the end of a long day. And I joke around with them a lot. And if someone's not paying attention, I go, okay, it's your turn. And it better be perfect because you were not paying attention. And she looked at me. I was just teasing her. I mean, she's 10 years old. And she looked up at me and she goes, nothing in skating is ever perfect. And I'm like, you are right. I mean, I learned something from, you know, my daughter and these kids every day because it's so true. Nothing in skating will ever be perfect. And so all you can do is put the best performance out there that you know how to do. And for me, that's where I find peace with my competitive days, is that that's all I did, and I can move on. But it's also knowing that that's okay. Is if you've given it 100% and you come in second or third, you have to be okay with that.
Okay.
Did you feel that at the time? Because sometimes when you're a perfectionist, it can lead you to be kind of tight when you actually get into the moment of the performance or the competition. Did you ever have that feeling of being tight?
You know, are we talking about the Olympics?
We're going to get there. I'm just talking generally. Okay. Yes.
No, because, you know, you only have so much to give. So with Frank's theory is you train and you train hard and you have that music on and you do double run-throughs of your short program. You do a long program, you do 3 laps around, and then you go right to things that you've missed. It's about the training beforehand. So when you get to that competition, you are ready to perform. And it's a light week, and you do not go through your program all the way. I'm giving you my training techniques. You know, if you're not 100% ready before you get to competition, you're not going to be ready there. But a lot of it, too, is mentally. If you are not mentally strong in this sport, you are done. You're done. You cannot, because, you know, I was national champion 4 years in a row, but I always had someone behind me who was younger, who wanted that title. And so it was just always about being focused and only what I could do. And Frank always would say, we have a job to do, darling, let's do it. Well, so it was about me and being in the moment and being in the game and just focused on why I was there. And, you know, I love to skate. I love to skate and love being in the show more. Competing was, you know, I got very nervous, but I knew if I was well trained, I loved being out there. And so I made sure of it. I made sure that, you know, people were sick of my music and that ice rink, that it just went on and on and on.
What do you think it is about today, I wanted to ask, is that you are at the Toyota Center, so you have, you know, an eyewitness view to some of the biggest talents in the world. Dennis Ten, Gracie, you know, Ashley, when, you know, before Worlds came and worked there. What is it, I guess, that you think that some of these kids have the most physical talent? Why aren't they succeeding? Is it the training and the discipline that they haven't learned yet?
Oh, how do I answer this nicely? I think it's a lot harder going into a competition when you're expected to win than being the underdog. Also, I think it's the training. I want to hear music on. I did not see double run-throughs of a short program. I did not see run-throughs of a long program, clean run-throughs of a long program, let alone hard stroking afterwards. There was not that kind of training going on. And plus, mentally, if you don't think that you're ready, or if you don't have clean programs behind you at your rink to bring to the table, to bring to nationals, to bring to worlds, I don't know how you're expecting to automatically have that appear at nationals or world competition. It's so tough. So you have to have the confidence of knowing that you can get through that long program with a consistency and the stamina and the short program, to have double run-throughs. It's very hard to do a double run-through. But I think, it's about the training and the knowing that you can do it.
Well, Frank Jonathan, go.
Well, there's like brilliant answers going on, and it's like amazing. But how about a bit of fluff to keep things light, Linda? As we've established, like the beautiful last name of Fratianne, like, so you're a nice Italian-American family in the 1970s. So if you're anything like my Italian-American family and pictures I've seen from the 1970s, there's like a bit of a plastic furniture situation, a lawn ornament situation, but you have such style on and off the ice. So we're curious, what exactly was the family style? Were you a stereotypical Italian-American family in the 70s?
Well, a lot of antiques. I grew up on 2 acres in Northridge when it was beautiful, and orange groves, and a typical ranch style house. And we had oranges and peach trees and a plum tree in the back. And grew up with, German Shepherd, and I always had a cat.
Okay.
Of cats. So just to, really, I grew up in a very normal, loving family.
So you're saying no plastic on the furniture?
No plastic on the furniture.
Fair enough. We need to be too stylish. Okay. All right, now Dave can get all serious.
Okay.
Well, when we see Frank at the...
on now. Okay, go.
When we see Frank at the boards now, we see Frank who has coached dozens of champions, and he has a very, strong presence. What was he like when he was younger? Did he have that same aura about himself? What was he like?
When Frank was younger, he was a lot more strict. I see him now, and he's so much more casual with his teaching. I think he really feels that he wants to enjoy his teaching now and really has nothing to prove. He, is the best coach in the world, if you ask my opinion. And I think he really loves what he does. He loves to coach. And I see that every day, and the kids love him. And I always say, with my kids that I send over to take from Frank, I always say, you better listen to every word that comes out of his mouth, and eye-to-eye contact, and respect everything he says. And you do not know how lucky you are to be taking from Frank Carroll, because they weren't around, and they're 9, 10 years old, and they just look at me, and I put the fear in them. And but his style, it's the same. He is on the ice every day with his skates. But I remember him getting, if I was speaking with a friend, or he would yell across the ice, "Linda, get to work." He doesn't quite do that with people in this ice rink, kids in this rink, because I think he feels that, that needs to come from within them. If they want this, they need to really work for it also.
What were the big lessons you learned from him early on? You talked about that training. Did he set that when you were young to let you know what you needed to win? Okay.
Absolutely. Because that's tough to do that. But basically, Frank taught me how to be respectful, how to just be a lady. And, because I grew up with him, I saw him more than my own father. He was always very fair, has so much class. And I just know if I ever needed anything, he's the one I'd be calling right now. But I feel so fortunate to have had him in my life. And, I started with him when I was 9 years old. And I feel I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity to have his guidance. And he just taught me, a lot of respect and discipline and how to really treat people kindly. He's a very kind man. And so, I remember one time it's a little bit of a story, but I was in the Cleveland ice skating show and kids were gathering around Dorothy Hamill. It was right before the 76 Olympics, and she ran up the stairs, and I didn't know any differently, and I ran up the stairs after her into our dressing room. And I came back here, and I was running up the stairs into the dressing room, and I came back downstairs, and he says, "Don't you ever do that again." And I said, "I'm sorry, Frank, what were you talking about?" And he said, "Those little kids wanted your autograph." And he said, "You needed to stay there and sign every one of those autographs. They are your fans. You need to be there for them." I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, he has some hallmarks, with his skating. The arm position is always to the right. So, I mean, what were the sayings that Frank would teach you, the hallmarks of the technique? I guess, what were the real signatures of being a Frank Carroll student?
We worked a lot on landing positions of the free leg coming straight back and over the tracing and holding it. He always liked a beautiful arched back in the back crossovers. But I think, for Frank, and what I remember is a really strong landing position. And he says, you got to be like a cat. You always got to land on your feet. Because if you're a little tilted in the air, if you can get your free leg out and land strong, you can get out of any jump. But more than that, it was about being consistent with your program and not stopping. And if something happens, to get up or complete the spin and get right to the next element and not stopping. If that music went on and you were in a lesson with Frank, you were expected to do the whole program with performing it like you were in competition.
Well, at what age do you start to achieve success in competition? You talked about wanting to beat those other girls in your rink earlier. When did you start to figure it out and get that bug?
Wait. I didn't talk about wanting to beat them. I talked about wanting to be better than them.
Be better than them. When were you the queen of the ice rink in juvenile and intermediate? How did this come about, Linda?
Because, for me, it's not about beating anyone. It's about being the best that I can be. Mm-hmm. I guess when it really sank in that I'm going to be a skater is when I was invited to my first international competition when I was 12 years old. I went to Saint-Tropez, France, and Oberstdorf, Germany. And I won in France, and I was second in Germany. And Ty and Randy were also there. Charlie Tickner, Johnny Carlo. I know I'm aging myself. But it was like, I guess this is a big deal. And it was in the newspaper, and I was being interviewed, and I'm like, why do they want to interview me? I just want to skate. So, so that was kind of it. And then another step was in 1976 when I was not expected to make the Olympic team, and I just skated because I'm loving this. And I was at the Broadmoor, the old Broadmoor, and did the 2 triples in that competition, and was second to Dorothy, and was in the 1976 Olympics in Innsbruck. And that was very, very unexpected. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I remember that, the results didn't go up automatically. They were announced. And So that was the first time I was being interviewed by Dick Button. And so I'm standing on the sideline, and I did not tell my dad. And so I remember looking over, and my dad, when I was announced, just took his head and put it in his hands and just bent over like he could not believe this was happening. I couldn't believe it was happening. And, you know, I did not have dreams to be in the Olympics because I really didn't know what that meant, you know, at 8 years old. And I just loved to skate. And then, of course, I saw Peggy Fleming, and I wanted to be just like her. But all of a sudden, being in the Olympics, and it was crazy. It just all happened so fast. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the next year I was world champion and national world champion for the first time. And, you know, that was, you know, again, I just wanted to skate. And then I had people wanted to talk to me and interview me. And I'm like, please, I just want to go back to the room and have room service. I mean, if you talk to Frank, that was my thing. And, you know, I remember in Vienna when I won, regained my world title, I walked into the room of this official party, because that's where my mom and Frank were at. And everyone started clapping, and I went to my mom, and I kind of looked around behind me, and my mom said, "They're clapping for you." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, they're clapping for you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Right?
You know.
Well, you mentioned your mom and Frank, and it's known that they were close friends. So what kind of a skating mom was your mom? Did she figure it out before you did? Were she and Frank guiding you? What was she like as a parent?
My mom, as long as I was landing my triples and doing clean programs, she was fine. I mean, it was good. No, that's not true. As long as I was focused and dedicated and working hard, everything was good. But when I was maybe not giving 100% in my lesson, or stopping in the middle of my program when I was not in a lesson, or not trying, or there was a little bit of that 17, 18-year-old bratty teenage phase that I went through, where, you know, I thought I was right all the time. My mother didn't know what she was talking about. Now that I have a 26-year-old daughter, I'm thinking, oh my God, I was such a brat with my mother. But my mother was amazing. At the time, Frank was at 3 different ice rinks. So we would go to Pickwick in the morning, and then I would go to school for a little bit, and then we would go maybe to Culver City. And then we went to Van Nuys Iceland, which was a very small ice rink that I trained at. But she was very devoted. And I always say in this sport, it's not about just me. It takes a village to make a champion. And so, you know, I had that. I had, you know, my family that was so supportive. I mean, my brothers and sisters were amazing. And my dad, who was so supportive of my skating, you know, all the costumes and the music and all the lessons that I needed, he was there. And my grandfather helped. And my mom was there driving me around and taking me to all these competitions. As I said, I don't remember my mother not being at a competition with me. She was there. She, you know, helped me put my skates on, you know, get ready, help me with my hair. And Frank, who was so devoted to me, and whatever he said, you know, you want to skate to this music? I think this is great. Okay, Frank, that's great. You know, you want to do this competition? I think you would, you know, it would be good for your career to do this competition. Great, we're going to do that. There was no second guessing Frank's guidance or opinion. He was, we just trusted him. We trusted him and with what he had to say and what he recommended with me and my skating, and, you know, down to costumes and music. And so in that respect, it was a combination. Plus, I was so devoted, and I was so, as you said, a perfectionist, and I wanted to be the best. And I just think if one of the, and I was, what's the right word? I ate healthy. I didn't get in the wrong crowd, which I think is important. I was in bed by 7:30 every night. We had school figures back then, so I wasn't out till all hours, and getting up at 4:30. I couldn't do that. And I think that with the combination of all that and my talent and hard work and just trusting my team makes a champion. But if you have one of those elements, maybe you don't have the financial support or the emotional strength or the talent. You could have all the money coming your way and all the lessons in the world, but if you don't have that athlete who has that drive or the willingness to do double run-throughs of the short, or doesn't have the mental capacity to handle the pressure of the press, or, we didn't have Facebook or all this social media back when I skated, but there were things that were said behind my back in the media that I read, but you got to turn that off and put your blinders on, and we had a job to do.
So you mentioned the 4:30 a.m. figures. Talk us through figures, because we know that you do that excellent figure class now, right? And we also, like, through YouTube and all these sorts of things, we can revisit all these outstanding short programs, and your freestyle skating is so excellent. But you often came from behind after the figures. So did you like figures? What kind of impact did they have? Because we as like fans, we know at the time that figures often led to controversial results, right? So we never really understood how you were assessing someone else's figures and all of that. So tell us all the things.
I actually love to do school figures. I thought they were challenging. I thought they were kind of a game. It was kind of like doing yoga for me. 4:30 in the morning, I'd wake up, I'd be on the ice at 5:30, and it was kind of relaxing. It was like a ballet class before a free skate. So, and yes, they weren't maybe compared to Annette school figures, but that's hard to get into. But I think they were right up there with the best in the world, my school figures.
How would you assess yours compared to hers? Oh, sorry.
Okay, go.
Yeah, how would you assess your figures compared to hers? Because we can see on YouTube, we can go back and watch Katarina Witt's figures, and we see that she had very slow school figures, and the commentators would say, ooh, those are slow.
Right.
But she would place relatively well. So what were the judges looking for? I mean, obviously you have to match up the circles and the depth of the edge, but what were your figures like? What were other people's figures?
And unfortunately, I go so far back that they don't have any of my YouTube school figures on there, or Annette's, which would be very interesting to look at. It's so hard because I don't know how to answer that.
What were you striving for in your figures? Like what was the mark of, like, you felt like you nailed it?
When I did school figures, I just wanted the circles to line up. I wanted the brackets to be across from one another. I love doing school figures. I love doing loops. I love doing, brackets. And even to this day, when I teach, the kids are doing moves in the field, which I don't teach, but I'll say, come on, let's do your moves. And then I'll say, well, where's your free hip on this outside edge? Because that all goes back to school figures and what I learned from Frank. And so I will do that once in a while because I think it's still very interesting to me. And I love doing my figure class because nobody does that anymore. And I think it just gives you such control when you do those edges for when you get to the free skating, you know where your free hip is, you know where you're supposed to be when you're on an outside edge, and a lot of these older kids, I say, you're on the inside edge. Where's your free hip? Where is it on the inside edge? Where is it on the back outside edge? And all of that goes right back to, the basic figure skating. And if I had a saying, which I don't, I wish school figures were still around. And I think the kids really benefited from school figures of the control of what they would have in their free skating. And I'm not sure Moves in the Field does that for the free skaters.
Well, so like Dave mentioned, like seeing the Katarina Witt figures and they're a little bit slower. So like if you saw a competitor who was not doing figures up to par, let's say, what would be some of the dead giveaways? Like what were the things you were looking for?
Well, if they took off on an outside edge and they were wobbling, if they didn't have a really smooth edge, or if they did a 3-turn and it wasn't on the long axis, or if they did a bracket and it was too early, that could throw the lobe off. And then if a loop is tilted, it needs to be a blade wide and a blade and a half long. And they have that Moves in the Field, and a lot of the kids are just doing, like, going back on the heel and not even doing a loop. And I have to take them to the ice, and I said, look, this is not a loop. You have to actually draw a loop with your edge on the ice. And they go, oh, really? Yeah, really? So, it's important to me because it's that control. And, when you get to footwork, you're going to need that.
Okay. So now you mentioned also in 76, right, landing the 2 different triple jumps in the program, which was like unheard of at this time, just unbelievable. So now what other jumps were you trying? Did you play around with triple loop, flip, or Lutz, or what's your experience with those, with the other jumps?
So actually in 1976, I was the first girl to land 2 triple jumps in that competition. Yes, so that was kind of fun.
Different ones that had even more.
Yes, triple salchow and triple toe loop, and loved doing double axels. They were one of my favorite jumps. I did work on triple loop, and I did have a clean triple loop at one point, and triple flips were a little bit more difficult. I had sprained a right ankle, so doing that tap was a little bit tough for my ankle. But, with Frank and a program, it's about doing a clean, consistent program. And my triple loop was never really that consistent.
Okay. So when was that moment in 76 that you realized you really had a shot at the Olympic team? Did you think of that going in, or was it just kind of as the results were coming in that you realized?
Right. So I had just, again, gone to Colorado Springs thinking this is going to be a nice competition. I was 8th the year before at Nationals. And I thought, okay, another competition. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do my best. I love my program. And next thing I know, I'm standing there next to Dorothy Hamill.
So it wasn't really until it happened, you're saying?
No, it was not planned at all. We didn't even have a ticket there.
So did you have like a strategy to aim for that, or it was really just going in? There was no necessarily big talk about that.
No. I was, maybe hoping for 5th place, but again, I don't go into competitions. I never went into competitions saying I want to be first. We all want to be first. I want to aim for being, this goal is being 5th here or 2nd here or 1st here. I always aim for doing the job that we had to do. And I mean Frank and I and my mom, that to lay out the best performance that I know how, that I've been trained to do for the past year, lay it out there and love what I do and perform it to the best of my ability. And let the chips fall where they may, because I have no control over, back then we had the judges going like that, judging. Because if that were the case, my mind needed to be on my technique, my spins and being in the moment where I was, because that's all I could handle, and I'm sure if I was thinking about the judging, I would not have put down the performances that I had put down at all.
Yeah. Well, the 76 free program, it was so outstanding. A lot of people thought you deserved that win. So, take us through what that long program was like. And that was one of my favorite dresses of all time.
Thank you. Thank you. That dress is actually in Colorado Springs in the museum.
Okay, it should be. So, walk through who did the dress, Linda? Who did it? Do you remember?
Pete Menifee.
Okay. Yeah, it was beautiful. But can you walk us through what that long program was like for you?
Yeah. It's in my head. I still, I hear the music. I'm sure I could do the whole choreography. Absolutely.
I bet you still fit in the dress if they didn't have it in that museum.
So the first, there was some footwork in the beginning. The first triple was a triple salchow. And I remember jumping out of it and then going to the other end and doing a triple toe, which was felt light as a feather. Of course I was probably 90 pounds there. And then going in, coming around and doing a double axel, double toe. And then, now someone's going to YouTube this and I'm going to be wrong.
Were you staying calm the whole time, or what was your mental state during that program?
I was calm because I knew I was in shape, and I knew I'd done this program a million times. And even though it was at altitude, I think I was doing double run-throughs of the long, and I ended up with 3 butterflies in a row. And, all of a sudden I got a standing ovation, and I thought, well, why are they standing for me? But it was amazing. And I got off the ice, and again, it was like that first time being interviewed by Dick Button, and I'm breathing
how you guys did that? You came right off the ice and they just shoved the microphone.
I really missed that. I miss him. He's a legend. I mean, he's amazing. Yeah. But so the performance itself was just, everything was like clockwork. How I trained it, how I envisioned it, how I I just in my mind, that's how I saw it. That's how I performed it in my head. That's how I was focused to do it. So.
And it's such a feat. Of course, obviously Dorothy had no triples, and you came in with 2 different ones. What was that dynamic like? What was she like as a competitor?
She was incredibly sweet.
She was, okay.
Yeah, incredibly sweet. I remember I would want to get her a stuffed animal every time she competed. So I remember I gave her, I think it was a teddy bear before that competition. And she had all these good luck stuffed animals. That's what we had back then. And so I remember getting to the 76 Olympics. And I remember my mom and I cut out this big star to put, and she skated before me. So after she skated, she came off with this huge bouquet of flowers and, smiles. And so before she got back to her dressing room, we had put this big star on her dressing room door that said, congratulations. And I was so in awe with what was happening with her and her performance. And I'd never seen so many flowers. And I kind of forgot about why I was there. And it was not the best performance in 76 Olympics. Frank was so mad at me. Because so wound up in her performance and her win and her, I don't know, I was just like being a fan with her when I was supposed to be there about me. And that's what I'm talking about. I learned from that is I got to be so focused on why I'm there. The self is this sport is a little bit selfish. And so in that respect, you have to be so focused on yourself. and why you're there, and then be loving to everybody else.
That's right.
Well, you mentioned Ty and Randy being at your first international. So how well did you know those other skaters on the first Olympic team? I think Ty and Randy are probably a little couple. I don't know California geography, but Anne said that they're a little bit closer to Orange County. So did you know them well at that point?
They're actually not Orange County. They're LA County, and they live. Ty grew up like half an hour from my house, and so every Sunday I would go and train in let me rephrase that. Every Sunday I would go to the Santa Monica ice rink where Ty and Randy were, and some of the other kids trained. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. Every Sunday my dad would take me to the Santa Monica ice rink where Ty and Randy trained, and so I saw them once a week. And they became very good friends, and we went through a lot of competitions together.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you remember about that first Olympic experience? You said that your mom was mad that you didn't do well. You know, we couldn't judge when you get off the ice.
Furious.
Why were they furious? It was hard to, when we watched the performance, Frank is talking to you, it's hard to gauge his feelings at the time. So how did you feel about your program? How did they feel, etc.?
In 76, at the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So was he talking, I don't know when you were referring to, before or after the performance?
After.
Not pretty. I think he said to me, "Why did you do that, darling?" Yeah. And so this is what I'm talking about, is that for me, no matter where I placed there, that was not my best performance, because I went into the triple sow and did a double, went into the triple toe and did a double. And I know that I was so much more capable than that. But I was so caught up in Dorothy Hamill's performance that I wasn't focused on myself and why I was there and all the hard work that I had done to get there. And so they had good reason. I felt bad enough as it was, and so they made me feel worse.
Had you watched Dorothy skate or watched her on a monitor backstage?
I can't remember that, because, and I'm going to say no, because Frank never allowed me to watch competitors before me that skated. As you know, I understand now why, but the fact that she came back with all these flowers, and I was like, oh my gosh, she must have won. But again, it was not about me and putting down my best performance. And that's all Frank wanted. And myself.
You were the second ranked girl on the team going in. Now, Wendy Burgess did finish ahead of you. Did you feel competition with Wendy at the 76 Olympics to set yourselves up to be the next American ice princess?
Yeah, it's so funny because I didn't really think about that. Wendy grew up in Southern California too. We trained at the same rink. We were friendly. As I said, I think I was 8 the year before. And so being competitive with her was not in the picture then, because I was just a little kid down in the ranks trying to do triples and double axles, and it was not, we were not, second and third, trying to get in there at all. So, I just wanted to be the best. I wanted everyone to go away, right? And be the best, right? But it was not necessarily about beating anybody. It was about going out there and getting that program done, and the consistency of doing it, and having the consistent technique that Frank taught me. If I'm good and square and get a good takeoff on these jumps, I know I will land them. And that's, I think that's what makes him an amazing coach, is his technique on these jumps.
Well, nowadays you can watch your competitors on YouTube. You know what someone is doing if they're at a competition. How much did you know what your other competitors were attempting? If you were doing 2 triples, did you know what Dorothy was doing in Colorado? I guess, what was that like?
You know, we were on the same ice together in practice sessions, and again, I'm just with Dorothy. She was Dorothy Hamill. You know, she was the favorite, and she was our national champion. And again, I was her fan. I was looking up to her in Colorado. So I was not. I was there for me. I was there because I wanted to skate, and even going into the world competitions later on, I never looked up my competitors, Annette or Dagmar Lurtz, because it wasn't about that. I didn't want to get concerned. Another thing Frank and I never did is we never changed the program. We went into a competition, it was set, and we never changed it if the skater before me didn't land the combination or this. He never took things out. It was set. And so I didn't have to think in my mind, oh my gosh, I got to do this differently. And I think, I'm not sure, but maybe coaches are changing programs accordingly to what is happening in the competition. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of sad with the commentating that's going on. And so for me as a competitor, that would be very confusing. But maybe these kids are more flexible with the new judging system. And
I think the coaches pay a lot of attention on social media regarding what the other competitors are doing when they're doing the different quads. The coaches know that, and I think in the training. So
yes.
How much chatter was there? I mean, at competitions, there's always a lot of nervous talking and nervous energy about anything and everything. Was that the case when you were competing? Was everyone whispering and gossiping about, how people looked?
Oh, I was on the ice working.
Well, backstage, and, yeah. Frank kept you insulated. Yeah.
Well, I think the toughest thing for me was Lisa Marie Allen, because she was always second to me at nationals, and would quite frankly say some not very nice things about me, and that was tough because I thought we were friends, and then I guess we aren't friends, and so I got this very shy, nice girl, wanted to play the game fair. And, I found her cutting me off during practice sessions at nationals. I remember, we're doing school figures and, we halfway down the ice, my half and your half. And I remember her being on my side. I'm like, I'm not moving for you. And we literally, Lisa Allen is, 5'8"? I'm 5'2.5". Literally bumped into each other. Banged hard because I wasn't going to stop for her because she was on my side of the match.
Yeah.
So that for me growing up, because I was one that I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to have lots of friends in skating and, to be liked. But I realized that the better I got in skating, the less friends I had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was okay with me. And then I got this, I always say I have two sides. I have this, very nice, glamorous, Snow White side to me. And then there's this other side to me. It's very competitive and don't cross me, don't cross my child, the other big one, or that real Italian mother person will come out and bite you. And it doesn't come out very often, but it comes out once in a while. And, so growing up with that, it was really tough. And she said to the press one time that I just could never get to the rink by myself. My mother had to drive me around the whole time, and but she had her own car, and she always has a tan, and always at the beach, and blah 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 blah. But whatever.
So how do you tunnel vision past that? How do you, like, when you talk about staying focused? That's hard.
Yeah. And so honestly, it worked against her.
Yeah.
Against her. That here I go. I'm going to be a big fat liar. I wanted to beat her.
There are those people that you want to beat in life that just get that little, they make you mad. They. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. I don't want to be. But I always, she says, why should I want to? Well, I gave you 4 years to try and do that, girl.
You were talking about.
But I have to say, later on, when we both ended up in Sun Valley, Idaho, she said she was going through some of her old paper. She said she was going through some of her old articles, and she said she couldn't believe some of the nasty things that she was saying about me and how sorry she was for saying all those things about me. And so, for that, I respect her. And actually, later on, we became very good friends and are very good friends today. We both have one child, one little girl. Actually, they're both in college. So we're really good friends today, which is crazy. I think we've gone through life and the difficulties of it, and we're good friends, which is, who would have ever thought that? Not me in a million years. But on the flip side, when I got to Worlds, Annette was always so gracious. Mm-hmm. And, for some reason, I didn't have those feelings with her because, when I won, she was always so gracious with me. And when she won, I was always so gracious with her, no matter what. No matter what.
Now, what was Frau Mueller like? Because she seemed to be egging Katerina on a bit, and she had all of the jewels and would be stroking Katerina like her prize pony in the Kiss and Cry. So when you were against... What was Frau Mueller like when you were against her?
Just that. She was very stern and very cold. And, I could almost see her saying, scud along, don't talk to Linda, scud along. And, Annette and I are two young kids that, she doesn't speak English, I don't speak German. And, just saying a polite hello. But I could just see her kind of like, be on your own side and whatever. I don't. She's a piece of work.
Would she be watching you in the practices with Frau?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And did you feel that?
You know what? I felt it, but I just dusted off my shoulders because I wasn't going to let her wreck my day. Mm-hmm. Nor anybody else at Worlds.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you got further along in the international competitions, Denise Bielman would try different triples, triple Lutz, triple loop, different triple flip. Did you ever think of adding a second triple toe or another triple Salchow to your program to kind of up the ante?
We did at one point, but it just didn't work. Mm-hmm. We didn't. I just lied. We never thought about adding another triple because we just never did. We wanted consistency. I don't know. We never did.
Okay. Because that triple toe was money, Linda. That triple toe, you never missed it.
I know, but see, this judging system was different back then, so I don't know if it would have mattered. I don't know. You'll have to ask Frank that question.
I bet he knows, too. I bet he has that.
And I would not know. That's something, because he's a memory that is unbelievable. The way he remembers details.
Well, now what about the sit spin? Let's talk about the Fradiani sit spin. How did it come about? Is it because Dorothy had her own spin, so now you needed your own spin? Discuss.
Frank and I were working one day, and we also had a off-ice. She was a modern dance teacher, and we were doing creative positions. And she says, "Why don't you put your head on your knee?" And I'm like, "I'm not that limber," because I was not limber at all. I'm a very square and tight body. And she's like, just try it. And I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And it was so much fun. I just loved doing it. And the faster I went, the easier it was to do. So, it was really fun. Yeah.
Easy peasy. Okay, all right. Now, like, you really glamorized the sport in a time when there were a lot of homemade costumes, and it was a little less glamorous, perhaps. And then you burst on the scene. Skaters love you for it. Parents despise you for it because now they have to fork over all this money to look as good as you do. So how did you kind of develop this signature look, these outstanding dresses, in a time when really it was much more plain and...
To be really honest with you, that was Frank's idea. In 1976, he was very friendly with Pete Menefee, who was assistant to Bob Mackie. And he said, wouldn't it be fabulous if she could have this designer costume and this hand-painted Scheherazade costume. And so I went, and it was, this magical place where Cher gets her costumes done, and Margaret. And so we said, yeah, great. I love that. Who wants to, I want to be a princess. So I had this costume made, and I don't know if you remember, but in 76, there were 3 little chiffon petals right here in the costume. And the association said it was too much. So they had me take those 3 little petals off before I went into the 76 Olympics because they thought it was too much glitter. But one of the smartest things that Frank did is in 76 for the warm-up, for the short and long, he said, leave your sweater on for the warm-up. I'm like, okay, I trust him, do whatever he says. So I left the sweater on. I go out to do my lung program, and I hear this gasp in the audience, and I couldn't figure out what, I couldn't figure out what they were like gasping. And later on, I'm thinking, yes, they're gasping about this costume. And how lucky was I? How lucky was I?
I love that. Some of us refer to that as the gay gasp.
Yes. It's like when Linda walked into the bar at Nationals and all the gay men in skating were fainting over themselves. Like she's their Dorothy Hamill. Like,
I love it.
I believe she got applause.
Yeah.
I was going on in my mind. You guys have to remember, I spent 10 years with Disney on Ice, right?
Okay, all right.
I let him.
We'll get there.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Okay. So, 1977, right? This really became a year for you to shine. Now, did you anticipate this kind of happening? It was interesting at this competition because you skated well, but it also had clean performances by Priscilla and Barbie and Wendy, and then the lights are going out, and then all these sorts of crazy things. Yeah. Did you feel like the association, like everyone was ready for you to take America's like leading lady crown, or did you feel like you snuck your way in there with consistency, or what did you feel about that Nationals experience in '77?
Did I skate well? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, no, we know everybody skated well. I was just curious if you thought sort of the association at that time was ready to crown you and see you through the next the next cycle, if you will.
Okay. Those thoughts do not really enter my head or went through my head at the time because, I was that all-American girl that showed up with the clean skates. I was with the mother there, and Frank always said the right thing. I never was in trouble. I used to wear the first communion white gloves on my practice sessions. I was that good girl. So, I think that politically, I know that might sound a little silly, but maybe that played a little bit into, keeping me up there as a national champion. They want someone representing the United States that is a good, clean representative. But it's so hard because you're asking me about other skaters, and honestly, when I skated, I was exhausted, it was over, and I didn't really run out to watch my other competitors. And as I said, with Frank, he never allowed me to watch the skaters beforehand, or before I skated. And so if I saw Wide World of Sports that weekend, which, we had the exhibition on Sunday, and it was live. So a lot of times I didn't see my other competitors skate.
Right. Okay.
So it's really, for me to answer your question honestly, it's a little tough.
Well, what I was wondering about is, back when Peggy Fleming won, she won for 5 years. No one, she never lost the national title. Then, Janet Lynn comes and she never loses. Then Dorothy wins 3 years straight. So did you know in 76 that whoever won was probably going to stay at the top? Were you aware of that?
No, not at all. And that is not necessarily true, though. I mean, how could that be? I mean, if I had a really horrible performance, that they couldn't keep me out. But I don't know compared to my competitors because we didn't have that TV screen backstage, screen live on what was happening with the skaters out there. So it's so different now with the skaters. They know exactly what their competitors are doing. From step to step, jumps, spins. We had no idea.
And what was your experience with this lights out situation? Such a screwy thing to have happened at that. I mean, even in the clips where you watch it, like on YouTube, it's like, what is happening?
But that's another thing, going back to Frank Carroll and his training, that no matter what happens, you just keep going, honey. You just keep going.
Lights out in the arena, no problem. Okay.
I was not about to start that program over. It was the last, 15, 20 seconds where I was doing butterflies. And so, I mean, something to talk about.
Okay. Now, what about going from that into, and it was interesting because you won that, even though you didn't necessarily win a particular portion of the competition, you stayed steady the entire competition. You were second after figures, second after the short, second after the free. Is that how you wanted to win your first national championships, or was it still just really?
You're telling me that I don't even remember that. Isn't that interesting? That interesting?
Okay.
See, I have no idea.
Okay.
All I know is that I won.
That's all that's important.
It is. Yes, for sure it is.
Let me rephrase that. All I know is that for me, in that competition, I did the best job that I know how. Right? And so I don't, like Frank, I don't remember results. I've done a lot of competitions. I've done a lot of traveling. My daughter right now is the most important thing in my life. So you're telling me I got all those marks? Great. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, so how did you feel going into Worlds that year? Was it different going in as a national champion? Did you feel like what was the thought process going into Worlds? Because I know you weren't results oriented. But inside your head somewhere, you knew there had to be a good, you had to have a shot here.
Again, I just, it's all about that training and getting to that competition. But for some reason, nationals for me was always the harder competition. For some reason, I don't know why. I went to the Worlds, and it would be less stressful. I to this day, I can't figure that out.
Okay. And then talk to us about having the flu and having inner ear problems and all of that.
So, at the 1977 World Championship in Tokyo, Japan, I was first going into the lung program, right?
Yes.
I knew that. Hey, man, your interview. Oh, my gosh.
We deal with the figures. Yeah, okay. And one the short. Okay.
Yeah. And I thought, here I am, in first place going into this long program. I am so sick. I have a fever. I can hardly get out of bed. I think the fever was 104. I don't know if I can do this. And back then I could only take an aspirin or something. I couldn't take anything more than that because of the doping control. And because of Frank, and because he had trained me so well, and to be so consistent, I thought, I'm not going to let this go. I can't, I need to go out there and try. And, I had the chills. I didn't feel what, there was fluid dripping out of my right ear. I don't know, looking back, I don't know how I did it. But I got out there and I was, kind of feel like you're in this tunnel.
Yeah.
And I started, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be out here. I just don't feel well. And I fell in that first triple sow. And here's where my anger got I got so mad at myself. And I literally started beating myself up. And I can't use these words here, but I started staring at myself and saying, you need to get your act together. If you want to do this, you better get your stuff together here. And so I went down at the other end and I did, but triple toe loop. But this is all about Frank's training, because in training, if I missed the triple sow, I would get back up and do the triple toe. So that scenario was not something foreign to me. It's something I had done, because I worked so hard on that first minute over and over and over again. So I got really mad. I mean, I don't know if Frank even knows this, but I got really mad at myself. And so I did the triple toe, and I just kept talking to myself. You better get through this. You better do it right. You're going to regret this. I don't want to have any regrets in life. And so I just barely got through that. And felt awful afterwards. I don't know if you probably saw the interview afterwards with Dick Button again. And so then I went straight to my hotel room, got into bed. I think Frank said I didn't even stay for the ceremony.
That's what he said, yeah. We have to take his word for it, I guess. Yeah.
There's a video on it.
Yeah.
And I didn't do the exhibition, and went to Hawaii afterwards, thinking the sunshine would help, and nothing. And then I got back to California, got better, and then I wanted to get back skating, and it reoccurred because I didn't stay off long enough. And stay, but I have never been that sick ever to this day.
See, that's why you can't go to the beach like Lisa Marie Allen. The illness comes back.
Oh dear. Anyway. Back.
Next.
So it was really scary for me though.
Yeah,
really
that's
scary. Yeah. But also what I remember about Japan is it was in Yoyogi Stadium, and they had this big high dive. because it was a swimming pool. So they froze a swimming pool. I don't know if you can see that in the tape, but they had this big diving board up above the ice rink.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did your life change after winning those worlds?
When I got back from winning worlds, there was the Los Angeles Figure Skating Club to meet me at the airport. My brothers and sisters were there at the gate. You can imagine that, with flowers. And then the press wanted to interview me. And then that began of interviews and TV appearances. And so it was difficult for me because I wasn't used to that. I wasn't prepped for that. I think these young kids today are prepped on what to say and how to say it. And, no one told me what to say. And I was, oh my gosh, I was so shy. Very, very shy.
Well, you speak about the press. It's interesting because Jonathan did a little Googling and sleuthing here. And he found an article in People magazine where they talked about your charisma and your nose job. And they covered this as a news story. And
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Did you hate that?
It's all over the internet too. If you Google my name, it's all over the internet. Ridiculous.
So at the time, would they just how real was this whole thing about looks back in the day? I mean, Annette's weight was a topic of discussion, your nose, your costumes. I mean, what?
Well, to be really honest with you, I had 2 deviated septums.
I did also.
Okay, good.
They're terrible. And it's the most uncomfortable surgery you've ever had when they whack it. Yeah.
Right. And my dad used to say, when I was going to sleep, he said, make sure you close your mouth. You're going to catch a fly. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
Right? So, nothing to do with my looks.
Well, that article said that your sister had those deviated septums too. It had.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine a time so blatantly discussing it.
Yeah.
Even at the time when they would announce everyone's weight and height when they would compete. I just can't imagine that ever happening today.
Wait, what did you just say? They would announce everyone's
everyone.
Yeah, they'd be like,
they would
Linda
announce
Fradiani from California, 90 pounds, going into this triple toe loop,
I don't remember them doing that.
Well, it's on the commentary.
Yeah.
Like Dick Button and Kay would say. It's crazy.
Yeah, I barely saw that because
that really didn't change until the 90s. I mean, you watch, gymnastics in the, the Olympics when Kim Zemaskal, Shannon Miller, they list everyone's height and weight like there's your stats, like 6th grader,
Crazy.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's important to be the right weight because I was doing triple jumps in competition. And I remember Mr. Carroll having the scale in the back of his car, right, 6 months before the Olympics. And I had to wait in the parking lot to get weighed in every morning. And if I was over 100 pounds, I'd be sent home. That happened one time.
You were under a pound? Oh, horrible.
Yeah, it was like 101 and a half. And it was, it was the weekend after Thanksgiving, and I got sent home, and then I lost 6 pounds in 10 days. And he's like, darling, you're just getting too thin. Don't lose any more weight. And so, but of course, I listened to what he said, and I lost 6 pounds. But I understand that. I understand that now. I understand how it is training someone when they're not fit. They're trying to do triple jumps. It doesn't work. It's a hazard to their health, right? But it's different back then when you were doing double flips or double lutzes, but these triples, and these kids are doing triples. It's tough on the ankles. It's tough on their hips and knees. It's tough on the girls. It's tough sport for girls and boys.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about being sick after those 77 Worlds. You come back, you're sick again. Did you start to feel pressure about defending those titles when you have to start giving interviews? Did you start to think about, well, if I lose, they're going to write about it and people are going to talk about it? I mean, did you...
You know, they were going to write about me whether I won or lost or whatever place I was, you know. So I had to just forget about the press and TV and just go out there and do what I love. So
when you lost the world title in 78, was it disappointing?
You sound like the rest of those dudes.
Well, no, I'm wondering, you said that you're trying to, you know, not be, you know, you're trying to have this mindset where you are trying to stick in your bubble. So you're only human. So I'm wondering, you know, you were very clear that, you know, that you're trying to do your best. So this is kind of the moment when it's show me the money. Yeah. So when you're...
I was mad. I was mad. I was upset.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I was, you know, some things that I can't say on this video. Yeah, you know, and rather than feeling sorry for myself and I should have won and why me and playing the victim, I turned that around to getting mad and I'm going to go back home and I'm going to train harder and I'm going to get a new program and I'm going to lose 5 pounds and I'm just going to, you know, do whatever it takes to regain that title. Rather than go the other way.
So it shows, because if you watch your skates from 79, there's an electricity there when you were performing in 79. There was a real verve, and you know, you hit those 2 triples, but you hit them, they were higher, they were faster, you had more spark to your skating. Did you feel that extra confidence and that extra...
Absolutely. But again, I think it all goes back to, you know, where your mindset is and where your training is. Costumes help.
You were very glittery in 79. You were shimmering, Linda. Yes.
It's good. I like to shimmer.
Yeah.
Still today, I like to shimmer. Oh dear. Yeah, you know, I just, and I think it's so much harder to defend a national title than to get there. And, you know, so to have that title 4 years in a row, looking back, you know, I have to be really proud of that. And, anyway.
Linda, were athletes like on the teams then, did anyone see sports psychologists then, or was that not really a thing you were hearing about at the time?
You know, we didn't do that back then. Yeah. You know, for me, I don't know how I got this training, but I just visualized my program in my head and I saw myself doing these triple sows and triple toes and double axels and double flip combinations. And that really helped me. And it was the power of positive thinking. You know? And so when I teach today, when I ask one of my little girls, you know, how's your double flip? And when it's a new student, they go, well, it's bad. I go, oh, no, I don't want to hear the bad word. I say, when you say something, your ears will hear it and your mind will start to believe it. So let's try this again. I said, you know, maybe you can tell me your double flip needs some work or the timing's a little off today. So let's try this again. How's your double flip today? I go, oh, well, timing's off. And I said, okay, so let's go back to a single. Let's try the single. Let's do this timing a little bit quicker. So if you don't have that kind of mindset that you know you can really do something, then you're done. You're done. But you also have to have the training and the miles and miles that it takes to get to a national championship or a world championship. You have to have the training behind you to know and have the confidence going in that you can do 2 clean programs.
Well, it's also interesting you talk about in 78, like a silver medal at the World Championships for some people is a lifetime achievement award. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. But so the fact that you were then able to turn that disappointment into motivation instead of defeat
Right.
Even, you know, a lot of people were talking this season about Gracie Gold. She felt disappointed at her world, so she let it deflate her instead of encourage her. Was that mental pivot for you just something that came naturally then? That idea that it motivated you to work harder instead of want to give up?
For me, yes.
Okay.
For me. And don't get me wrong, I was very upset and depressed, but I'm the one that laid the performance out. Not Frank, not my mom, not my dad, not my family. It was me. And so I had to take responsibility for what had happened. I couldn't blame that on my team. It was me. And so, therefore, I needed to change something about my skating, whether it be, again, taking 5 pounds off, training differently, getting a new program, getting a new dress, having a new focus. I was the one that needed to change it.
Okay.
Had you done something in 78, let up a little bit, maybe weren't as intense? Do you think that there were, you know, reasons that, you know, you talked about?
You know, I don't know if there were reasons as much as maybe I don't know if there were reasons as much as I let the pressure get to me. I was very nervous. I think it's really tough defending a world title.
Yeah.
So you talked about, you know, getting yourself together. When you see someone like Gracie at the Toyota Center, you know, can you as a person, you know, everyone always looks to the coach. Can the coach really snap you out of it, or does it have to come from yourself? I mean, because you are the one out there. So at the end of the day, people blame Frank that Gracie had a rough season. You know, at the end of the day, you know, is it Frank's fault that she didn't do well? You know, how do you react to that when people talk about someone not doing well? Because after the Nationals, I mean, we have a Facebook page, people comment all things that, you know, blaming that on Frank, that, you know, Gracie didn't do. Are you kidding me? No, that's very real. You know, even, yeah, it's very real that, you know, he got a lot of criticism after they split, after the Nationals.
I'm not on Facebook or social media, obviously, because I can't even get on the damn thing.
It's a very reactive culture, you know, and now people really protect the skaters, and they want to look to blame someone.
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it might get me in trouble, but I don't really care.
Okay.
But speaking my truth here is that it had nothing to do with Frank. Frank has had a really tough year with Gracie and trying to get her motivated and trying to get her pushing her and getting her spirits back up. And going into the Nationals, we didn't see Gracie doing clean, long programs and doing the 2 and 3 laps afterwards. I didn't see Gracie doing a clean, short program, let alone back-to-back short programs. I don't think her training program was where she really wanted it. She was having difficulties getting through the program. And Frank was there working with her. He was there with his skates on every day, trying to motivate her. But I think ultimately this motivation has to come from within. It has to be something that you really love and you want to do, and you want to be the best at it. And I think she does want to be the best at it, but for some reason she was really struggling with getting in shape this year, and I felt really bad for her.
Yeah.
So when she went to Nationals, and I, like everybody else, watched it on TV, it was not a surprise to me with the 2 performances that she had. And, you know, people said to me, what happened between Frank and Gracie at Nationals? And I said, well, I don't think it's something that just happened at Nationals. I think it's been that relationship has been struggling all year. And, you know, I have not talked to Frank since Nationals because he's very classy, and, you know, I don't think there's one thing that happened. I just think that he doesn't need that in his life right now. He has so many students that love and respect him, and he loves to teach them. And I can't speak for Frank. I don't know what happened, but I know it's been a tough relationship for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it breaks my heart to see her compete like that, because I think she's one of the most talented skaters in the world, and I think she's a world champion. Even last year, after Worlds, I came back, I saw her at the rink, and I said, Gracie, congratulations. And she looked at me, and I said, you're world champion in the short program. You're amazing.
Yeah.
And so then we had about a half an hour conversation, and she talked about me and, you know, were you ever the favorite going in, and how was it? And I really tried to help her, and with all my guidance that I knew how, and I just said, you know, you got to put that in the past and get back on the horse and just move forward and forget about that, and get mad, and you're so talented, you are the best skater in the world, but you have to know that, and I don't think you know that. Yeah. I know that. Frank knows that. I don't think you know that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she knows that today either. Yeah. And I hope and pray that she finds that passion and that love for skating back again, because, you know, she has the whole package. I mean, talking about having everything. She has the talent, she has the look, she has the costumes, she's the parent, she has, you know, her darling sister who supports her. And I think she can have a comeback. But she, I think, mentally struggles too with knowing that she's the best one. I think she really doubts herself all the time.
So in 79, when you put your glittery dress on and you did your hair and you got out there, did you know that you were the best one, that even if Annette was ahead in the figures, that you could do that program with the 2 triples and win?
I just knew after losing it, I know I talk about, I'm like, I know I'm talking about wanting to put down my best performance, but I was mad after I lost it in 78. I was really mad, and I was going to give it 1,000%. Not that I don't give it 1,000% all the time, but I wanted to give it like everything. And, you know, part of me is, I have this team behind me. It isn't all about me. And so I didn't want to let my team down. And so, yes, I was prepared in 79.